Good evening, and well, it's the 10th time that we're here this year for an Arianespace launch. As you know, since the beginning of 2012, we've already launched Vega once, the first launch. It was a perfect flight, which is not all that frequent. We've launched 6 Ariane 5s. We've launched 2 Soyuz. The last one was on the 1st of December, so this evening the 7th launch for Ariane 5 and the 10th launch. So it's quite extraordinary because the range of launches for 2012, it was an actual reality. It was an actual reality because we have launches which come from Europe and Russia perfectly produced, and here we have an operational team which, as our customers say, is the best in the world, and they're here, they're working, they're functioning, and they're working without any downtime because we've already had 10 campaigns this year. So tonight's launch, 2 customers were very important for Arianespace. As usual, I'd like to say, but we've got Skynet. It's the 4th satellite in the Skynet 5 series. It's Skynet 5D. This is for Astrium and the UK Ministry of Defence. And the other satellite is a Mexican satellite. We've already launched all the communication satellites for Mexico, but tonight it's a bit particular because it's a satellite for the Mexican government, and it shows how versatile Ariane 5 is. We can launch commercial satellites and government satielites. So, I'll leave you to enjoy this launch. Ariane 5 ECA, Skynet 5D, Mexsat Bicentenario. It's the 7th launch for Ariane 5 and the 10th launch this year at Arianespace at the CSG.
Greetings, everybody, wherever you may be, and welcome once again to French Guiana, the home of the Ariane family, for today's launch of Arianespace flight number 211, the 7th Ariane 5 flight this year, the last of 2012 from the space base, and another international launch, a satellite for Britain and a second for Mexico. Joshua Jampol here, and with me, Jesus San Juan of Arianespace. Jesus is head of the Environmental and Structures Department and an authority on the launcher's upper parts. Welcome.
Hello, Josh, and welcome to everybody following the live broadcast of this launch. Un saludo muy cordial a los espectadores del canal del Congreso en México y a las personas que nos siguen desde la explanada de la Secretaría de Comunicaciones y Transportes o desde la empresa Telecom. We have just seen status panels and we are ready for launch. Josh.
To get us started, a look at the launcher. For those of you unfamiliar with Ariane, she stands 55.0 meters high. She's in 2 parts, the lower composite, as you saw, the main stage, and the boosters.
You can see also the cryogenic upper stage, which is 5 meters high and with 18 tons of propellant. And also the fairing, just inside our customers, our satellites today.
We'll describe each in turn as it is functioning, as you can watch Ariane along with us make her way across the Atlantic to deliver her satellites. But first, time to meet some of the key players who make the mission happen. This is Arianespace Flight Directorate, top management, Jean-Yves Le Gall, you saw.
You can see Patrick Loire, which is the head of the Arianespace crew facilities, and also Edouard Perez, the chief technical officer, who gets technical information for assessment.
We had a look at the launcher. We're going to peek inside the fairing now for a glimpse of the passengers. You can see the logos on the outside. The end users tonight, 2 governments for the UK and for Mexico. The upper passenger, Skynet 5D, the heaviest at about 4.8 tons. The upper passenger, of course, separated first, usually the heaviest one.
In the lower berth is Mexsat Bicentenario under the Silda, which is a bit lighter, just under 3 tons. The fairing is quite a nice cool inside. We are blowing air at 16 degrees Celsius and we are monitoring carefully what's going on inside.
Waiting on the pad, the skies are clear. We should have good visibility for the launch tonight. Continuing our presentation of the players, this is the commercial side, Luca Checchio, who's the project manager for Skynet with his customers.
Yeah, they are in charge of these project managers, in charge of the contract execution and coordination of all Arianespace internal activities.
And for our first film, we have many tonight. The first one, we're going to have a quick look at Skynet 5D, presented by Luca Checchio, the project manager.
In the upper position, Skynet 5D is a telecommunications satellite built by Astrium for Astrium Services government communications. Skynet 5D will be the 8th Skynet satellite launched by Arianespace and the 4th of the Skynet 5 series, all launched on Ariane 5, launching institutional and defense satellites. Providing secure and reliable access to space is one of our major roles. With our past experience, we can tailor our service to meet the needs of these programs. I would like to thank Van Odedra for his collaboration and contribution throughout the Skynet programs. Also, I would like to thank the Astrium satellite teams here in Kourou and throughout Europe for their professionalism. Now, let's enjoy tonight's launch.
Today's mission coming only 18 days after the successful launch of the Soyuz from the base.
Yes, and for Mexsat, and his manager from Arianespace is Beatriz Romero. You know, Josh, inside my department, we work, in fact, very closely with the program directors of Arianespace because we have to pronounce and stamp the compatibility of the satellite with the launch vehicle environment.
Over to Beatriz Romero now, Arianespace's project manager for the next film. Presentation of our second passenger, Mexsat Bicentenario.
Mexsat Bicentenario is the first of a 3-satellite order made by the government of Mexico to Boeing Satellite Systems. This spacecraft has been designed and manufactured by Orbital Science Corporation based on the Spark 2 platform. Arianespace has played an important role in the Mexican satellite system development with the launch of all governmental satellites since Solidaridad 1 in 1993. Some of the customers that are here today for the launch of Bicentenario were already involved in this first Arianespace mission to Mexico. This is the case of Mauricio Avila, the technical director for the Mexsat program from Telecom. As a Spanish, it's a great pleasure and a great opportunity for me to work with a Mexican customer, and I would like to say a few words in our common language. Les deseo muchos éxitos para el programa Mexsat y esperamos tenerles de nuevo muy pronto aquí con nosotros en la base espacial de la Guayana Francesa. Les enviamos un fuerte saludo para México y para toda la comunidad hispanoparlante.
Keep your eyes on the clock on the upper right. In a moment, you're going to be hearing the DDO, that's the Range Operations Manager.
DDO, attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
Call out the 7-minute mark. That's the beginning of the synchronized sequence, the final part of the final countdown.
Top, H0-7 minutes.
Now what happens during this 7 minutes is the launcher is becoming autonomous. Power is passing from the ground, which controls everything now, to the onboard computers. There are 2 of them, which will control everything afterward. What can you tell us about those 2 computers?
Yes, one of them is for fluid, and the other for electrical. And all operations from now, quite delicate indeed, will be managed automatically, like propellant filling commands, pressurization of tanks, activation of navigation systems. Everything is in automatic mode now.
There is a standard order of operations for every launch campaign. Its organization's well defined. In our next film, you can see how Ariane 5 is assembled. Parts of Ariane 5 are made in Europe and cross the Atlantic by ship. Upon arrival, they're taken to the space base by road and come first to the launcher integration building. Here, the 2 solid boosters, which are built in French Guiana, are mated to the lower stage. Then the upper stage is hoisted atop the first stage. Ariane is then transferred on her launch table to the final assembly building where she awaits her 2 passengers. Skynet 5D and Mexsat Bicentenario each arrived by a special cargo jet. While the launcher is being readied, they too are prepared in separate buildings here at the space base. Each is given a thorough checkout to make sure their systems are still in perfect working order after the long voyage. They're weighed and their tanks are filled with fuel. When this is done, they move to the final assembly building where the launcher is waiting for them. Here they are mated to the Ariane 5. Skynet 5D and Mexsat Bicentenario were placed under the fairing on December 10th and 11th by Arianespace technicians and the 2 satellite teams. After final pre-launch operations, the day before liftoff, the now complete Ariane 5 is moved one last time on her launch table to her position on the launch pad. Her voyage is set to begin. That voyage gets underway in less than 5 minutes. Other dramatis personae, the satellite managers, here on the Skynet side, they give the okay for each stage of the satellite's preparation. We're in the middle of the synchronized sequence, as we mentioned. Jesus, the professionals here always say these final 7 minutes are the most intense. Do you agree?
Yes, we can feel it. Many operations were very critical. For example, the very last check of the opening of the engine valves or the final arming of the pyrotechnic lines. So everybody feels a certain tension, and because they're very focused and concentrated. They want to achieve excellence in performance.
The satellite mission directors up next. We'll take a look at the Mexsat Bicentenario team. Maybe you can tell us why the satellite is named Bicentenario.
As you know, in 2010, at the time where Mexsat 3 contract was signed, Mexico commemorated the bicentennial of its independence movement and the centennial of its revolution. So this name of Bicentenario must be quite suggesting for Mexican people. The words like libertad e igualdad, which were pronounced and shouted at that time, come to their minds because they were essential for the future of their nation.
4 minutes, under 4 minutes before launch, intense concentration all around. Tonight represents years of work for many of the people here. Across the base, everyone attentive as we near liftoff. And across the base, another place that's very busy tonight is up here in the launch zone. They're closer to the pad than we are here in Jupiter. The launch operations manager and his teams going over the final checks on the launch system. And among these teams, we're seeing more and more women in the ranks of Arianespace engineers. Now, Jesus, this is where you're usually sitting up there, 12 kilometers away from Jupiter. What's going on up there at minus 3 minutes?
Well, the people are focused on final readiness of mechanical, fluid, and electrical system. All the engine valves are being opened, the heating of some batteries, deflection of engine nozzles checked. So everybody hold their breath to be performing.
All in all, up there about 200 people, I would say. Huh? Arianespace managers. Once the vehicle's left the ground, their work is done. The status panels on the left, all is going according to schedule, and we know it because the status panels are green.
Yes, we're ready for launch. They show the health status of all the system, the satellite readiness, the launch system, the vehicle plus the pad, the range system, radar and telemetry, and the weather. So we can launch in the rain, but not in case of high ground on altitude winds or with risk of
lightning is also a problem.
An important aspect is the duration of the final checks and operations. They have to be compatible with the instant of liftoff, which shall trigger the launch.
The status panels showing the launcher, the satellites, all the services available on the base. The yellow bars in the middle of the screen, take a look. These are the propellant feeder arms going into the upper stage. They're very important because they're the last thing you're going to see before liftoff. This is a split screen, a closer shot of them. Liquid hydrogen, the LH on the left, liquid oxygen on the right. The arms are part of the ground equipment and the launch table. Now, the upper stage needs to be filled up right up to the last minute.
Yeah, because it's called propellant evaporates in this heat. The LOX is at minus 180 degrees and the hydrogen at minus 250. So they boil off and they need constant topping up. And people who are here tonight or who have been here know what I mean.
And the people here tonight in Jupiter, as we approach 1 minute, are making their way out onto the two terraces. The DDO is going to call out the 1 minute mark. The two terraces on either side of Jupiter here allow an excellent launch of the liftoff as Ariane passes overhead.
Top. H0 moins 1 minute.
A minute to go. We're in the final moments of final countdown.
Yeah, so you can watch us on the internet at arianespace.com or also from your iPhone or your iPad.
Now, the final seconds, here's what to watch for, what they call the ignition sequence. At minus 5 seconds, the yellow bars, the cryogenic arms, swing back. At 0, the main engine lights, but we don't have ignition yet, do we?
Yes, because in the very first second it is open the hydrogen chamber valve, and until 6 seconds is performed the Vulcan checkout, and at 7 seconds when it's finalized, and only if everything is okay, it is launched, the ignition of the boosters. So there's no way back.
If all is well, then and only then the computers give the order to light the boosters. When we're going to go, we'll let you hear the DDO.
Attention pour le décompte final.
He will call out the final countdown. We'll be back after Ariane has cleared the tower.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain. Allumage de 2 EAP et décollage. La propulsion est nominale, tous les paramètres à bord sont nominaux.
Well, the cryogenic arms swung open on time. You saw it, triggering the ignition sequence at 1849 local. And right on time, Ariane 5 began her mission, roaring off the pad here in French Guiana. You see the trail of gold leaving behind, rising into the night sky through the light clouds. So we do have our good visibility. We'll be able to see the separation of the boosters and maybe even the fairing.
Always impressive, the liftoff. Ariane weighs at 773 tons at liftoff. She's burning an impressive amount of tons, 5 tons fullest per second. And we're feeling now the sound is coming.
La propulsion est nominale.
To Jupiter.
All is okay on board, says the DDO, as Ariane follows the program in her onboard computer. We're in the first of 4 flight phases. The first 3 are powered, the last is not. We'll describe each in turn and in detail so you can follow Ariane as she heads across the Atlantic. Right now, the first phase, the single Vulcan is called, the core stage engine, and the 2 boosters are burning.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont nominaux, la propulsion est nominale.
Everything is okay on board, says the DDO. How about the satellites now? They're riding, they're waiting.
Yeah, they're waiting. They may be on or off, depending on the customer's choice, waiting for the time to injection in orbit. Anyway, it's a special moment for them since they are experiencing now important accelerations and vibration during this first atmospheric phase of the flight. However, there have been sites for that, and you know that they are vibration tested on ground before sending them to crew. And also the launch vehicle is now withstanding enormous loads also.
La propulsion est nominale.
The boosters will burn for another 5 or 6 seconds, and you'll hear the DDO call out that milestone. Then they will be extinguished and separated. And there, that looks like the flame out of the boosters right there. You'll see them fall away.
Séparation des étages d'accélération à
There we are.
bord.
2 points of light on either side falling away. The yellow dot in the middle, that's the core stage. That's Ariane continuing to burn. On either side, the boosters going to fall about 500 kilometers away from shore. Now, how are they separated?
Well, they have on board a pyrotechnical cutting system that separates it from the launcher and a small rocket for distancing them, for avoiding collision.
Now, the separation orders are given by the onboard computer, which is part of your duties.
Exactly. That's the case.
Before the boosters are empty of their fuel, their push diminishes, and the onboard computer we've been talking about senses this drop in acceleration and decides to separate them. We're coming up on separation of the fairing, but before we do, take a look on the left of your screen, Jesus, and give us a rundown. On the upper left is the cursor crawling up the curve. What is that?
Yes, it's a computer simulation of the trajectory. So now, and we can see the dash point, which is now the real trajectory. Now 114 kilometers, 2.3 kilometers per second.
We've had separation of the fairing. You can see there's one half you can see. The other half is out of camera range on the other side. And are they separated the same way as the boosters are?
In similar systems, but now here we have 2 separation devices, one horizontal for separation from the launcher, and another vertical for cutting the fairing into halves. So curiosity is the only stage of the launcher which remains attached to it after separation through a cable for 2 or 3 seconds, which is used to send the separation data to confirm the correct function.
More of the mission in a moment, but for now, the latest news from Arianespace. December 1st, the 4th Soyuz to launch from French Guiana put into orbit Pléiade 1b. The high-resolution Earth observation satellite will provide coverage with its twin, Pléiade 1a, which was launched on the 2nd Soyuz 1 year ago.
Here at the space base, the next Ariane 5 campaign is already underway. The first flight to 2013, set for February, will orbit Amazonas 3 for Brazil and Arianespace Africasat 1 for Azerbaijan and Africa.
And the light launcher Vega is also getting ready for its second mission. It's set to fly early next year, and its Zefiro upper stages have already arrived here in French Guiana by ship. The inaugural flight of the latest addition to the Ariane family took place last February.
The 4th ATV, or Automated Transfer Vehicle, is also being prepared for its flight. The ATV, named Albert Einstein, arrived in Kourou in September for its flight in April to bring supplies to the International Space Station.
In Paris in early December, the yearly meeting of the Franco-Japanese Club hosted French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius, who urged stronger economic ties between the two countries. Then at the Élysée Palace, home of the French president, François Hollande learned of the conclusions reached at the meeting. Arianespace has launched 27 of Japan's commercial satellites and maintains a strong partnership with the country.
On December 10th, Geneviève Fioraso, French Minister for Research, met with the space sector to discuss the future of European space, and especially the development of a new generation launcher, Ariane 6. Arianespace, the world's leading commercial satellite launcher, remains Europe's #1 operator for launch services and solutions.
On December 14th, Jean-Yves Le Gall paid a visit to Lockheed Martin in New Jersey to present a model of the Ariane 5 in honor of the 100th and 101st satellites built by the company. They were launched together by Ariane 5 last May and represent an historic milestone for the U.S. firm. Arianespace celebrated the holidays and the end of the year at its traditional Christmas party in Washington, D.C. with all its U.S. clients. Arianespace's market share in the Americas remains high at nearly 50%. Everything okay on board. On the left of your screen, two lines. A is our altitude, V is our speed.
Exactly. Well, you can see the EPC is an impressive stage of 30 meters high with a Vulcan engine.
Over to Louis Laurent now, Senior Vice President for Programs at Arianespace, for a recap of this banner year 2012.
The seventh launch of Ariane 5 in 2012 is the final stage of an exceptional year. It was exceptional for several reasons. First of all, the level of activity. 10 launches in the year is a level of activity we haven't had for more than 10 years in French Guiana. Secondly, this year we had 3 different launching systems by the same operational team. And this again is the first. And a few days ago we reached the symbolic threshold of 10 years of continuous success with 57 launches from the CSG. And finally, this year was marked as well by some very important missions for European governments. There are several reasons for this success. I think there are 3 that stand out. The first is the maturity, the technical, operational maturity of Ariane 5. This is the result of massive work that's been done in Europe and in French Guiana, improving processes, improving the quality of our products. As well, we have an organization which has been refined over time and with experience, where every person has found their place, whether it's in manufacturing the elements of the launch vehicle in Europe, the integration in French Guiana, the launching system, or the way the base operates. And thirdly, the importance of the involvement of Guyana in the success, whether it's local politicians, the administration, the security forces, the local industrial fabric, all of them supporting the success of this space activity. And as well, it was particularly remarkable this year if you compare it with our competitors. And our intention is to make this exceptional year 2012 our new standard. And I think as well that the decisions that were taken at the ESA conference in Naples is for us a wonderful encouragement for continuing activity for our customers. Today, the machine is working full steam ahead, and we're going to continue working in this way.
While you were watching, we were picked up by our very first downrange tracking station that's over the border in Brazil.
Ariane sends data to those ground stations, and this tells us how the flight is progressing in real time. And later we can analyze it and to see how the vehicle performs. That is what we call the Level 0 flight evaluation.
Extinction de l'étage principal cryotechnique.
There, right on time, is the extinction of the lower
Séparation de
stage
l'EPC.
and the separation of the lower stage. You can see how that happens, pushed away from the mothership. We're waiting for the confirmation
Allumage de l'étage supérieur cryotechnique.
of ignition of the upper stage, which we just got. We got 3 orders given by the onboard computer in a series of about 12 seconds. Extinction of the lower stage, separation of the lower stage, and ignition of the upper stage. Now, with ignition of the upper stage, we're into the second half of the mission. We're going to start focusing on the satellites. But before we do, what happens to the lower stage?
Lower stage falling down from 220 kilometers of altitude, and we will perform the so-called passivation, which consists of depressurizing and empty the tank so that it can have a smooth and violent rent in the atmosphere.
A look at Skynet 5 now with Van Odedra, the satellite mission director. We'll be back.
After the successful deliveries of the Skynet 5A, B, and C series of satellites to Astrium Services, Astrium satellites were kicked off with the Skynet 5D program back in March 2010. The Skynet 5D satellite is essentially based on the design of the previous satellites, but has the much enhanced UHF payload as well as the latest Eurostar 3000 platform. After kickoff, the project advanced the schedule by 4 months in order to secure our slot in the TVAC chamber. This required a significant amount of effort from our teams based in Stevenage, who are responsible for the delivery of the mechanical platform, as well as the team based in Portsmouth, who are responsible for the integration and test and delivery of the communications payloads. These 2 modules were then subsequently delivered to Toulouse, and an integrated team based in Toulouse had to work on a continuous basis 24/7 in order to deliver this project. Of course, once the launch is successful, our job is not done. We have a integrated team based in Hawthorne of Astrium Satellites and Astrium Services personnel who are eagerly awaiting in order to acquire the satellite and conduct all of the complicated operations on it in order to deliver the satellite safely to its orbital location. Once the LEOP operations have been conducted successfully, we then embarked on a fairly intensive campaign of payload testing. We test all of the payloads on the satellite before handing over the satellite to our customer.
We spoke with Van Odedder earlier in the week. We asked him to sum up the differences between 5D and the others in the series, and here's what he said. With minimal design change, we can offer double channel capacity. Not bad. He also told us 5D was delivered in record time for a UK military satellite. I think it was 18 months.
Yeah, well, now I understand what Van Odedder said, that we're working 24/7.
More on Skynet in our next film.
We are in the mid-Atlantic and being followed by our third downrange tracking station, Ascension Island.
Le pilotage est calme, la trajectoire est nominale.
Everything normal on board, says the DDO.
Yeah, that's what he said. Now ESC is the last propulsive stage. It carries almost 15 tons of propellant, and its engine, which is the former first stage of Ariane 4, is a thrust of 6.5
Up
tons.
next, another look at Skynet, this time with Colonel Justin Hodges of the MOD.
UK armed forces are used all over the world, and for that we need global communications. The launch of Skynet 5D is a fantastic opportunity. We started off with 2 satellites. This is the 4th going up. It just shows you how much we need this capability and how important it is to support modern operations. These are military-grade satellites that provide real, robust communications, pretty much effective against the vast majority of known cyber threats. But I think also in terms of a level of versatility where at very short notice being able to meet the Army's or the Air Force or the Navy's communications requirements as the operational situation on the ground unfolds. Well, Skynet 5 is a unique relationship between the Ministry of Defence, the Armed Forces and a civilian consortium. Military-grade satellites are costly. However, this is about value for money. The long-term private finance initiative that's at the heart of Skynet 5 has enabled the Ministry of Defence to spread the cost of providing operational satellite communications over a 19-year period. The other advantage is that it allows us to support coalition members when we go on operations overseas.
Nine minutes to go in the upper stage burn. The last Skynet went up in June 2008. That was Flight 183, Skynet 5C. Back then was the 25th straight success for Ariane. We're well past double that string of successes now.
Yes, and the 5D one has been here in Kourou since November 14 when it arrived and began its preparation campaign.
Today's launch illustrating the strategic importance of Ariane guaranteeing independent access to space for European governments and for other governments. Mexsat now, over to Omar Sharfin of the Secretariat for Communications and Transportation for a word on his satellite.
The Mexsat program is a fundamental part of the Mexican government's efforts to increase the telecommunication infrastructure in our country. It is comprised of 3 satellites, the Bicentenario satellite for fixed services and the Centenario and Morelos 3 satellites for mobile services. The Bicentenario satellite was built by Orbital Sciences Corporation in less than 22 months. It will provide communication services to distant and remote areas that are difficult to access with other technologies. This launch represents a huge milestone in Mexico's telecommunications history. The last satellite launched by the Mexican government was the Solidaridad 2 satellite, which was launched here from French Guiana by Arianespace in 1994. The Ministry of Communications and Transports in Mexico, as the project leader, has been working very hard during the last months to develop and implement this very significant system. I'd like to take the opportunity to extend our gratitude to Arianespace, in particular to Mrs. Beatriz Romero, our program director, for her dedication and excellent campaign management.
So there is still 7 minutes of propulsive flight. The engine will be then shut down through guidance command. There's a difference from the other stages managed by the flight software.
Up next, an interview with Mauricio Avila of Mexsat Bicentenario for a word on the satellite.
Good afternoon, bonsoir, buenas tardes. We're just a few minutes away from witnessing the launch of the Bicentenario satellite. Over the past 2 years, Telecom has worked intensely as the designated operator of the Mexican fleet, supervising the manufacturing of 3 satellites and building 2 state-of-the-art control centers, one at Iztapalapa, Mexico City, and the other one in Hermosillo, Sonora. Telecom personnel and young graduates from different institutes and universities have been trained in Mexico and the United States and been certified for the operation of the satellite. Mexsat brings to the Mexicans 4 major advantages: state-of-the-art technology, equality, security, and autonomy. state-of-the-art technology because when the network will be fully deployed, will be one of the most advanced networks in the world. Equality because the regions of Mexico will be covered with its great coverage, bringing voice, data, and video conference for rural areas. Security because the national security entities will benefit from its powerful capabilities and its extended coverage region. And finally, autonomy, because it was a system conceived by Mexicans, operated by Mexicans, for the people of Mexico.
And the people of Mexico very excited about this satellite, the first government satellite launched by Mexico in 18 years. The nation following the broadcast on TV on Canal Congreso in Mexico City. In November, there was an essay contest. People were asked to write on satellite communications and their importance to the development of Mexico. The winner, along with two school girls who are 11 and 13 years old, who got the best grades in the nation, were invited here to watch the launch. A look now at Orbital Sciences Corporation, the builders of Mexsat.
Mexsat Bicentenario was designed, integrated, and tested in Orbital's satellite manufacturing facility in Dulles, Virginia, and is the 30th GeoStar spacecraft built by Orbital for customers around the globe. Orbital GeoStar satellites are the industry leader for small to medium-class communications missions. GeoStar satellites are the most economic and reliable solution in their class and provide a full complement of payload capabilities. GeoStar satellites feature one of the industry's shortest delivery schedules and deliver high on-orbit reliability for broadcast satellite services, fixed satellite services, broadband, and other mission-critical applications. With 30 GeoStar spacecraft delivered to many of the industry's leading satellite operators and 4 scheduled for delivery and launch in the next 2 years, Orbital GeoStar satellites truly are the right size solution for geostationary satellite communications. Orbital is proud to partner with Boeing to deliver Mexsat Bicentenario to SCT and partner with Arianespace for the launch of the 21st GeoStar satellite aboard an Ariane rocket. Orbital. Innovation you can count on.
We keep on tracking the launcher using the reflector dishes, like big ears, oriented towards the space. And thanks to this, we obtain important information like trajectory data or launch environment. And we use this to confirm our predictions or to correlate models in case it was necessary. So we have been picked up our red tracking station in Melinde. And in our next film, you will hear from Mexico's Secretary of Communication and Transportation, Don Gerardo Ruiz Espasa.
The government of Mexico, under the leadership of President Enrique Peña Nieto, has a great interest in the further development of the telecommunications sector as an essential strategy to achieve economic growth and social welfare in our country. In particular, the Mexican satellite system constitutes an important project to provide telecommunication services to remote, isolated, and unattended communities where terrestrial communication infrastructure is non-existent or is not feasible to use other kind due to orographic challenges. Telecommunications and satellites plays major roles to support the development of economic and competitive activities in the country, given the modern global context. Notwithstanding the growing telecommunication needs since 1994, when Solidaridad II was launched, no other satellite owned by the Mexican government has been placed in orbit. With Bicentenario's launch, the government of President Enrique Peña Nieto is placing in orbit the first of 3 satellites which integrate the new Mexican satellite system known as Mexsat. I extend my appreciation and thanks to all of you who have contributed and participated in making this project a reality, which is of utmost importance to our country today. Thank you.
Our speed on the left, the line, the V, you can see we're over 9 kilometers per second, so we're in the neighborhood of the speed we need to inject the satellites. We're coming up on extinction of the upper stage. In a few seconds, you'll hear the DDO call out that milestone. Then we'll be finished with the powered flights phases of Ariane's launch, her mission, and we'll be into a whole other series of maneuvers, and Jesus is going to describe those as they happen. And there you see the nozzle shutting down. This is the upper stage. No more propulsion, everything proceeding perfectly on board Ariane 5. We're now in this fourth and final flight phase. It's what they call the ballistics phase. We've hit our maximum speed, and you can watch the speed on the left start to diminish. So what's happening now with no more propulsion?
Well, first is that everything goes okay. Todo va bien a bordo. And we're traveling high enough and fast enough to do without the engine. To understand the maneuvers which are coming now, we have to think that after separation, the satellites must have a certain orientation so that their sensors can see the Earth.
Skynet 5D.
Exactly, so they're starting these maneuvers since the sensor satellite have to see the Earth, the Sun, and the celestial bodies. And also our customer might have delicate equipment, and then they request not to be exposed to the Sun, so we have to make sun maneuvers.
So the this ballistics phase can be described as 3 chapters, let's say, because we have 3 elements that we have to separate. We have the first satellite, which is Skynet, which is going to be separated in just about a minute. And then after that, we have the Silda, that's the black bell-shaped structure you can see on the left there, covering the second satellite. And then we have to spin up and orient the second satellite, Mexsat, in another area and at another altitude as well. So this is what is going on. The thrusters, as you described, on, I think there are 12 of them. You can see them popping on and off. They're orienting the composite in the direction needed for separation of Skynet first. That's coming up in, I would say, about 10 seconds. So you can see just because we're not burning any fuel, that doesn't mean that not a lot of things are going on. There's a series of maybe 20, 25 maneuvers. Some of them last 3 seconds. Some of them last a minute or 2 or even 5 minutes, depending on the mission. We're waiting for confirmation of Skynet separation.
Séparation de la charge utile haute, Skynet 5D.
And there you have it, our first good news, separation of our first passenger. You see how that happens up there, pushed away from the mothership in a separation system different from the ones you've been describing, or is it the same?
Yes, for this configuration, the spacecraft and the launch vehicle are connected with 2 circular rings, and they are held together by what we call the clamp band. This is an extremely tight aluminum belt, and which has incorporated pyrotechnic charges that triggered this belt to open and to release the spacecraft smoothly.
So Ariane 5 successfully completing the first part of her mission. Skynet 5D separated over the east coast of Africa to join the others in the fleet. In our next film, a look inside Astrium, builders of the Skynet 5 series. An Arianespace launch of another sort this week. Arianespace's new broadband application compatible with Apple screens and smartphones, and with it you can watch all the future Arianespace launches on it and much, much more. We have a minute. I think we can go to the quiz question. Are you ready?
Oh, I was waiting for that.
You were. I knew you were. This concerns all of our customers tonight. Here's the quiz question. Arianespace question number 211. Of all the previous Skynets and SatMexes launched by Ariane, that means 7 Skynets and the first 4 SatMex satellites, only one was launched alone. All the rest were double launches. Which one was it? Was it a Skynet? Was it a Mexsat? The question again, only one of the previous satellites launched by Ariane for our customers tonight, and there are 11 of them. Only one was a solo launch. Which one was it? Can you give us the name of the satellite or the date or the number of the mission? You think you have the answer, Jesus?
I think I've got it. Yeah.
You think you do?
Yeah.
All right, hold on to it. You have a few minutes to think it over. In the meantime, we'll give you the answer in a minute. In the meantime, tell us more about the composite.
Yes, so we can see the Silda. You said before this is the black structure. It's quite a big structure, but quite light also. It's 500 kilos. The upper stage is the white one, and we can see the small thruster on the upper stage. They give short bursts of cold gas, which move the upper stage, and we don't need much power to do this.
In our next film tonight, another look at Mexsat Bicentenario, our second passenger. We'll be back with more at the end of the mission.
Boeing Satellite Systems International, through Orbital Sciences Corporation, designed and built a fixed satellite communications spacecraft that will be known as Bicentenario. It was built and tested at Orbital's satellite manufacturing facility, complying with the highest level of quality and workmanship standards in the space industry. Given the technical capabilities and features of Bicentenario, this satellite has built in the required performance to support state-of-the-art technology to provide satellite broadband services. Unlike current domestic and foreign satellites, Bicentenario will provide complete coverage with high-powered beams throughout the entire Mexican territory, including all of its islands and ocean regions. Rural communities, distant mountain regions, and extremely underdeveloped remote areas will have their telecommunications needs fulfilled with the most advanced technology in the world, supporting applications such as telemedicine, long-distance learning, and emergency communication services. Once Bicentenario reaches geostationary orbit, a series of in-orbit tests will be performed. Right after successful testing is completed, command of Bicentenario will be handed over to Telecom Mexican engineers, who will be responsible for day-to-day operations, tracking and control 24 hours a day, all year long. All of this executed from 2 telemetry track and command ground sites, one located in Iztapalapa at Mexico City, and the other located in Hermosillo, Sonora. With the launch of Bicentenario, Mexico will reach a new level of coverage, revitalizing satellite applications and telecommunications throughout the nation. Another 2 spacecrafts, the most modern and advanced for mobile satellite telecommunications, will complete the new Mexsat system. They will be known as Centenario and Morelos 3, which will be launched in the last quarters of 2013 and 2014. Mexsat is the newest and most important space project in Mexico's recent history. With the Bicentenario in orbit, the new drive has started.
Is that the mascot for Mexsat? Gilbert. If you just joined us, we've successfully separated Skynet 5D. We're waiting for the separation of the Silda, and Jesus is going to tell us what the Silda is, and also coming up is separation of Mexsat Bicentenario. So the Silda is what? That's a carrying structure.
Yes, a load carrying structure, and Silda is the acronym of Système de Lancement Double Ariane. It's a big carbon fiber structure. It is built in Lemiro by Astrium. And we can see that we keep on seeing the maneuvers which have been carefully planned to make sure that none of the parts enters in collision. And as we said before, to ensure satellite requirements about orientation of the sensors or protection of the sensitive equipments, and of course to inject the satellites in the required orbit and with the required attitude.
Separation of the Silda, this carrying structure, that's the black bell shape, coming up in under 20 seconds. Other military payloads launched by Ariane have included the Optus series for Australia, the Syracuse series for the French Armed Forces, and the Helios series for Europe. The animation shows the animation was ahead of the announcement. That's the Silda, the black bale shape, successfully separated from the mothership, revealing Mexsat Bicentenario. Underneath, our second passenger. Silda separation coming at about 2,300 kilometers altitude. Skynet separated at, I believe, 850.
850.
And Mexsat going up to about 2,700 kilometers altitude. So what you're saying about spinning up and avoiding collision is very interesting because the separation between in kilometers in altitude, but between the three structures, the two satellites on the Silda, is still quite great. But still, we don't want to run the risk of anybody running into anybody else.
That's correct.
Our speed is diminishing. All that's left of the original, what was it, 773 tons, is now the 3-ton satellite and a couple more tons of the adapters and the vehicle equipment bay of what's left of Ariane. Now, what's the mood like where you are usually in the CDL? We have a separation of Mexsat coming up in about a minute, less than a minute. What's the mood up there usually?
Well, there's still a certain tension as we get closer to the release of the Mexsat Bicentenario and the end and the completeness of the Ariane mission.
So everybody focused on their computer screens and on the telephones, although Skynet 5D was separated, what, 9 minutes ago?
Séparation Mexsat Bicentenario.
Hey, there you are, the good news.
This is great. Bravo.
And there you have the final good news. Ariane 5 successfully releasing her second passenger, Mexsat Bicentenario, right on target at her position over the Indian Ocean. You heard the applause now. The applause that's become a tradition after the first separation. The people here in attendance in Jupiter hold their applause, which is very polite. Now, the LEOPS, what they call the LEOPS, the first early orbit phase operations, now that Mexsat has been separated, the signal will be acquired in about a half an hour. There will be 4 apogee motor burns to get her up into her final slot on the 1st, 4th, 6th, and 7th day out. Solar array and reflector deployments coming in 8 days. Service is envisioned for the end of January 2013. And all these on-orbit testing and positioning procedures done by the SCT through Telecom. We're going to go to a replay now, and then we'll have the answer to the quiz question. Did you get an answer to the quiz question, Jesus? Yeah, do you have an idea of all the previous Skynets and SatMexes launched by Ariane? Only one was a solo launch. Which one was it?
I think I've got the answer because I work in the past for that.
All right, let's hear
their
it.
product, and it is SatMex 5.
Are you sure?
Almost pretty sure.
SatMex 5 is right. Congratulations. You get to watch the launch replay. SatMex 5 went up on Arianespace Flight 114. The date was 6 September 1998. Weighed 4.1 tons. Went up on an Ariane 4. So give yourselves a round of applause, anybody who got the right answer. And we're going to go to another replay.
It's funny, everybody took the
There are several observation sites where we have the replays. We're going to go to the speeches now. You'll be hearing from Jean-Yves Le Gall first. He's making his way to the podium. I think he's ready. Mr. Le Gall, when you're ready.
Bien. Donc, comme vous
So, as you have just seen, we have succeeded with the 67th launch of Ariane 5, which has put into orbit Skynet 5D and Mexsat Bicentenario. And I'm thrilled 3 times, 10 times. Why 3 times, 10 times? Well, this evening, 10 is a big figure because, firstly, 10 years. This is the period during which we have had 53 successes in a row for Ariane 5, representing an extraordinary level of reliability, and it's something which is unequaled in our business. Elsewhere, people talk about months of success. We're talking 10 years here. 10 tons as well, the performance of our launch vehicle, which once again has had a perfect countdown, enabling a new launch on time, confirming the skills and the commitment of our operational team. And the third 10 is 10 launches this year, because quite simply, this is what we've just done this year at the Guyane Space Center, with, you remember, a Vega launch at the beginning of the year, 2 launches of Soyuz, and 7 Ariane 5 launches. So this rate confirms the interest, efficiency, and availability of our range of launch vehicles, enabling us to launch any satellite for any customer into any orbit. 2012 is another record year for us, the mass of satellites in one single year, because for the very first time we have reached a total of almost 75 tons, including 20 tons for the Eduardo Amaldi ATV. So I'd like, first of all, to thank very warmly our 2 clients, Astrium Services, which operates the Skynet system for the United Kingdom Ministry of Defense, and the Ministry of Communications and Transport of Mexico. Skynet 5D, you know, was built by Astrium. It's the 8th Skynet satellite launched by Arianespace, and so this will enable Astrium Services to improve secure communications of the British Ministry of Defence and NATO. This evening's success, like the 7 previous ones, show the extent to which Arianespace's first mission is to guarantee independent access of Europe to space. This is something which is essential for our security, and it justifies in part the support of European governments to their launch vehicle industry. I would like to greet most warmly Evert Dudok, the Chairman and CEO of Astrium Services, who is watching us in Europe, and Simon Korshaw, Executive Director of Governmental Communications, who is here with us this evening in French Guiana, and I would like to thank them both very much for their trust, and I think they deserve our applause. The other spacecraft this evening was Mexsat Bicentenario. It was constructed by Orbital Sciences Corporation in association with Boeing Satellite Systems, and it's the 5th satellite launched by Arianespace for Mexico, and the first one which is exclusively for its institutions. After the launch of another satellite for Latin America last month, we are very proud to make a significant contribution to the development of telecommunications by satellite in this continent. So I would like to thank very warmly Mr. Gerardo Ruiz-Esparza, the Minister of Communications and Transport of the Mexican government, and David Thompson, Chairman and CEO of Orbital Sciences Corporation, and Steve O'Neill, who is President of Boeing Satellite Systems International, and I think we can give them a round of applause too. But this evening, I think you'll forgive me, I'm sure, if I go a little bit longer, and if I don't do it now, I won't have any other opportunity this year, to pay tribute to the people who, throughout the year, prepare these launches. First of all, the European Space Agency, who for almost 40 years now has been developing European launch vehicle systems, Arianes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, then Vega, then Soyuz at the Guyane Space Center, and who decided last year in the Naples conference and on the initiative of France, decided to start the development of Ariane 6. I'd like to thank the Centre National d'Études Spatiales, who has designed and developed these exceptional systems, launching systems, launch pads, and who plays an essential role here in French Guiana. And I'd like to thank everybody who, for a number of years now, who is the Deputy Director in charge of operations here, and I'm sure he'll be taking part in other ones. I'd like to give him a round of applause. A word as well for the whole of the European space industry, which produces Ariane 5 and Vega, Astrium, Safran, MT, Eurospace, Avio, ELV, RAG, Sapka, Dutch Space, Air Liquide, Volvo, Clemency, Cegelec, Endel, and the others. And of course, a word for Soyuz and our our Russian friends who produce frigate as well. The people here at the Guyane Space Center, who've shown 10 years how committed they are to the program and their excellence. They have given us a reputation on the international scene over the past 30 years, and we have very, very good industrial relations with them as well. And now the people from Arianespace who have made 2012 really an exceptional year. Quite clearly, thanks to you all in Europe and in French Guiana, the launch vehicles are working well. They're working well, and they will continue working well. Proof is that our order books for 2012 are remarkable, and this year perhaps maybe more than usual, given a certain slackness in the market and the aggressiveness of our competitors. We have an order book which will ensure 3 years' work for the benefit of people in this sector. I would like to hand over now to our clients. For Skynet 5D, Mr. Simon Kershaw, and for Mexsat Bicentenario, Minister Gerardo Ruiz Espasa. And then finally, Geneviève Fioraso, Minister of Higher Education and Research, who was following this launch live in Paris. Thank you.
Merci Yves, and ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Yves.
Thank you, and what else can I say other than congratulations to the team who've brought this about. It's an enormous number of people who work together for a feat such as this, and for us in Astrium, it's a triple feat. It's Arianespace and then Astrium Space Transportation who put everything together to launch it. It's Astrium Satellites who build it, and it will be Astrium Services who will now operate it for the next 15 years or more for the Ministry of Defence. So a huge, huge, huge thank you to all the dedicated engineers who've worked some incredibly long hours to bring this program in to a very demanding schedule. And also, of course, a thank you to our partner, the UK Ministry of Defence, without whom there'd be no need to do this, and with whom we have worked for 10 years and will work for 10 more years now with our fourth satellite in the constellation, giving us more capacity, more flexibility, more agility to meet yours and our other customers' requirements, including our friends from the Portuguese Ministry of Defence here as well. I couldn't let this moment go without drawing attention that this is actually the third Astrium-built satellite to have been launched in the last 3 weeks, which is, again, a huge success. Pleiades 1B and Eutelsat 70B also. So a huge success. And also, may I also offer my congratulations to Mexsat as well. It's a very important program for your country. And I wish you all the best with your future mission as well. Thank you very much, everybody.
Señor Denis Lavé, prefecto de la Guayana Francesa. Señor Jean-Yves Le Gall, presidente de Arianespace. Señor Steve O'Neill, presidente de Boeing Satellite System International. Señor David Thompson, presidente de Orbital Science Corporation. Señoras y señores invitados, amigas y amigos de los medios de comunicación, señoras y señores. Tengo el honor de venir a la Guayana Francesa en representación del presidente de los Estados Unidos mexicanos, Enrique Peña Nieto, para compartir con ustedes este gran momento de avance tecnológico satelital para nuestro país, al haberse lanzado el satélite Bicentenario. Agradezco la hospitalidad del Gobierno de Francia y del Consejo Regional de la Guayana, así como las facilidades para la realización de este evento. Asiste en este importante acontecimiento el señor Joseph Paviani, agregado de Seguridad Interior del Ministerio Interior de Francia, el señor Christophe Swart, agregado de la Defensa de la Embajada de Francia en México, el senador Javier Lozano Alarcón, presidente de la Comisión de Comunicaciones y Transportes del Senado de la República, representantes de la Secretaría de Gobernación, Secretaría de la Defensa Nacional, Secretaría de Marina, Secretaría de Educación Pública, Secretaría de Salud, del Gobierno Federal y dos alumnos muy destacados de México, Laura Valeria Morales Tavera, de primaria, y Diana Yanuen Vallecruz, de secundaria, así como sus padres. Viene también Carmen Enedina Rodríguez Armenta, ganadora del ensayo sobre las comunicaciones satelitales y su importancia para el desarrollo de México. El presidente Enrique Peña Nieto tiene el más firme compromiso de impulsar el desarrollo de las telecomunicaciones en todo el territorio mexicano, incluidas las regiones con mayores índices de marginación y de pobreza. Debido a la orografía montañosa de México, llevar servicios de telecomunicaciones a todos los lugares representa un gran reto, pues tenemos miles de pequeñas comunidades en zonas remotas y aisladas. El satélite Bicentenario nos permitirá también llevar el Internet y otros servicios de voz, dato e imagen en banda ancha a comunidades a las que no es posible enlazar por otra vía que no sea la tecnología satelital y ampliar la cobertura de los servicios de salud y educación a la población en condiciones de marginación. En pocas palabras, el satélite Bicentenario será una herramienta de primer orden para reducir la llamada brecha digital, que es una de las formas actuales de la desigualdad entre personas, comunidades y regiones. De igual manera, ampliará las capacidades para la prestación de servicios de banda ancha en todo el país, incluidas sus áreas oceánicas y mar territorial, y apoyará a las poblaciones de todo el país en casos de emergencia provocadas por fenómenos naturales. Con el satélite Bicentenario tendremos la tecnología más avanzada del mundo para la implementación de plataformas informativas y bases de datos que se utilizarán para fortalecer la seguridad nacional. El satélite Bicentenario, que se encuentra ahora en el espacio, rumbo a su posición definitiva ya cerca, está diseñado para prestar servicios fijos de telecomunicaciones. El proyecto completo es el más importante en materia espacial que se ha puesto en marcha en México, pues dotará a nuestro país de un sistema propio para reemplazar a los satélites del sistema Morelos que ya están llegando al final de su vida útil. El Bicentenario es el primero de 3 satélites que conformarán este sistema. Entre 2013 y 2014 serán lanzados los otros 2 para servicios móviles que tendrán los nombres de Centenario y Morelos 3. La inversión total del proyecto será de $1.600 millones de dólares, lo cual incluye a los 3 satélites con sus lanzamientos, los seguros respectivos, así como los 2 centros de control y monitoreo satelital ubicados en Ixtapalapa, Distrito Federal y Sonora Hermosillo. El presidente de México ha propuesto que el acceso a estos servicios se convierta en un derecho social. De este modo, el Estado garantizará que tengan precios accesibles y aún gratuitos para las personas de menores ingresos. Contar con acceso a Internet significa poder comunicarse con personas, empresas e instituciones de todo el mundo, adquirir y difundir conocimientos en todos los campos de la ciencia y la cultura y competir a escala global. Agradezco a los ingenieros, técnicos, académicos y especialistas que trabajan en este proyecto por su dedicación y entrega para construir, poner en órbita y operar el satélite Bicentenario. Reconozco también el profesionalismo y la calidad de las empresas participantes en el proyecto, Arianespace, Boeing Satellite Systems y Orbital Sciences. Muchas gracias por su contribución a una política pública tan importante para mi país. A la empresa británica Skynet le deseamos éxito en su misión espacial. Me da mucho gusto que nos acompañen representantes del Congreso de la Unión y de empresas de telecomunicaciones que operan en mi país. Su participación será fundamental para llevar servicios de calidad internacional y a precios más competitivos a todos los hogares, escuelas y hospitales de México, a todas las empresas, las organizaciones no lucrativas y las instituciones públicas. Hoy México da un gran paso hacia adelante rumbo a la sociedad del conocimiento. Hoy México construye su futuro. Hoy México tiene mejores condiciones para aprovechar la fortaleza de su economía, la capacidad de su gente y la decisión de sus instituciones. Conforme a las instrucciones del presidente Enrique Peña Nieto, en la Secretaría de Comunicaciones y Transportes estamos trabajando para que México avance con la mayor rapidez posible en el desarrollo de estas tecnologías. I would like to thank, on behalf of the Mexican government, to Arianespace, Boeing, and Orbital for the successful launch of the Bicentenario, which is the start of the most important satellite project in the history of Mexico. Thank you very much.
Bien, je crois que donc à présent on devrait voir sur la vidéotransmission Madame Furazo.
I believe we have Mrs. Furazo from Paris live on the phone. Mrs. Minister, you have the floor. Mr. Minister of Communications and Transport of the Mexican government, Mr. Gerardo Ruz Esparza, Mr. Minister, Mr. Christian Sater, Mr. Director General of ESA, and Mr. President of the CNES, Mr. CEO of Arianespace, Mr. Jean-Yves Le Gall, that I feel a lot more relaxed now than a few minutes ago. Ladies and gentlemen, presidents and general managers, dear friends, I am very pleased to be with you this evening, although I am here through audio and video means, but I believe this 10th launch by Arianespace was beautiful. It shows brilliantly that this European adventure that started 30 years ago with a first flight on the 24th of December 1979. It is the 67th launch and the 53rd success in a row. It's a beautiful series that has been unprecedented. I would like more than ever join Mr. Le Gall to thank Astrium Services, who's operating Skynet for the Ministry of Defense of Great Britain, and the Ministry of Transport and Communications of Mexico, who trusted Arianespace. And this launch tonight shows that they were right in doing so. And this shows the excellence of this year, 2012, with a record in launches, and also by the fact that these launches were made by 3 different launches from the Guyana Space Center. 6 were in the ECA version, including today's launch, and 1 in the ES version with a 3rd ATV of Eduardo Amaldi. So we had 2 Soyuz launches with satellites 3 and 4 from Galileo, and Pléiades 18 was launched, and we had the first Vega launch in the beginning of the year. And I take this opportunity to greet our Italian friends. And this in fact, complies with strategic needs and create a new use of the space in accordance with the governmental needs. And Skynet 5D is a military British telecommunications satellite. We have around 4,000 people working in this sector in France. It is also important for land planning in France, and also the activity of this center in Guyana are in fact having an impact on more than 10,000 people working for the center. Europe has 3 launches, all operated by Arianespace. It's the only company with such a complete range of launches, and Kourou is the spaceport of Europe. And this is the result of a close cooperation with ESA and all the spatial industrials and the CNES, and of course Arianespace. So in fact, this belongs to all of you. I don't forget our clients. clients who trust Arianespace to place their satellites on a winning orbit. This is also the result of a consistency and a political will, accompanied with also sustainable funds. And I would like to thank the Minister of Space, before becoming the Minister of Space and Research, who believed in this French space industry. Ladies and gentlemen, we just experienced wonderful moments and very important moments for the future of European space. We are going through a very difficult economic situations with this crisis, and important decisions were made in spite of that for a total above 10 billion euros by the Board Council of ESA. That decision was made for Ariane 6. This was a major decision. Ariane 6 was accepted and approved, and the first series of works have been decided for for next year, and an increased synergy between Ariane 6 and a better adapted technology. So this means this program has been enhanced for the future in the medium term and long term, and also this has the effect of guaranteeing specifications for all the providers. So this is a very good decision that we were able to take all together. And again, it is not only a French decision, it is really a European decision. Of course, we are in the Guyana Center, and we have a funding for 5 years now for the center. This is the best launching center because of its geographical location, but also because the technical efficiency of all the staff. So we also increased our support to this European station. Third point, we want to preserve the excellency expertise of Europe in the business of satellites. We gave a contribution of 27% for. We have a contribution of 27% from Germany. This is the Earth Observation Envelope program. It was approved with the spatial part of GES, which will help for two different technologies. For 2014 to 2020, the budget is going well, and we have good prospects there. We'll wait for confirmation.
The fourth point, the increased competitiveness of our telecommunications satellites. The European industry of telecommunications satellites is federated around the NeoSat project put forward by France, a program for a platform for the heart of the range for the future Thales, Arianespace and Astrium grouping. And fifth point, if I've counted right, a level of subscription for Arianespace so that it can accomplish future scientific missions. I know it's a program which is something that Jean-Jacques Dordain is very keen on, and it's essential for our laboratories in Europe. Here again, we have managed to converge. This is part of the negotiations. Sometimes it was a little bit tense, but it's always been very fruitful. This was our meeting in Naples. And finally, the continuation of ASS, again, a program that we're very keen on, of course, controlling our expenses, of course. Now, these results have been obtained thanks to the intense work of all the European players involved, the government, the agencies, the European Space Agency. And once again, we've seen that the space in Europe is Europe working together. The presidency of Italy has given way to Swiss and Luxembourg co-presidency with the same logic, the same determination, the same concern for getting opinions to converge, and particularly working on collective projects. But these results as well are the fruit of the success of launches like the one we have just experienced this evening. A little bit tense, of course, but again with a lot of pleasure. So, ladies and gentlemen, the European space sector has a great outlook ahead of it, and we now must do everything concretely in 2013 to get things moving. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your passion, which I've learned to share with my teams in the ministry for the past 6 months now, and I hope you have a wonderful Christmas period. Thank you very much.
Bien.
So thank you, Minister, for these words which touch us all in Europe and in French Guiana. Thank you above all for being with us for this launch. Now, the next meeting, the next appointment, there'll be no more in 2012, but next year, at the beginning of February, we'll have a launch in Baikonur for Globalstar, an American operator. We'll be back here in the first week in February with another Ariane 5 launch, ECA this time for Amazonas 3 for Spain, and the first satellite from Azerbaijan called Arianespace AfricaSat 1A. So now I would like to wish all of you here in French Guiana who are watching us on internet, I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas with your families as well. As far as we're concerned, if you liked 2012, you love 2013, and now here you can see the 10 launches. There we are. Thank you, Happy Christmas and Happy New Year.
Vega, le plus léger de la gamme, il rejoint Soyuz et la grande sœur Ariane 5.
Séparation ATV3, Eduardo Amalfi. Décollage.
On remercie très fort nos clients pour leur confiance.
Séparation de la charge type haute EcoStar 17. Séparation de la surface MSG3.
Décollage. Séparation Intelsat 20. Séparation AILAS 2.
Voilà, c'est fait. Bravo. Il fait chaud au cœur, un de plus, j'allais dire.
Top. Décollage.
C'est bon, on a fait l'acquisition. Voilà. Alors là, c'est l'image qu'on attendait.
Allumage EAP, décollage.
Fiabilité, compétitivité, disponibilité.
Confirmation de la séparation du satellite Pléiade 1B.
Top. Décollage.
So, congratulations to Boeing, to Orbital, to Astrium, and to everyone. That makes 53 straight launches for Ariane 5. Jesus, any last words?
Just also congratulations to everybody who made possible this successful launch, and especially for our customer Skynet 5D, and for people who are following us from Toulouse, Stevenage, Portsmouth, and Hawthorne. So, un saludo muy cordial otra vez a los espectadores del canal del Congreso de México y a las personas que nos siguen desde la empresa Telecom, desde la explanada de la Secretaría de Comunicación y Transportes, y agradecer igualmente la presencia aquí en Kourou de todas las personalidades que han venido desde México, especialmente a las niñas Valeria, Diana y Carmen. Y nada, un abrazo muy fuerte y espero que nos veamos pronto.
And over these fine shots of the final launch replay, we'll say goodbye. The year has been a full one for Arianespace, and 2013 promises to be the same. Next launch from here, early February, another Ariane 5 will be here. We hope you will be too. Until then, on behalf of everyone here at the Space Base, Joshua Jampo with Jesus San Juan saying thank you for being with us. We hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to being you next time. In the meantime, have a good holiday season and a safe New Year. Goodbye, everybody.
Feliz Navidad.